First and foremost, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
It should be an honor. Yeah, as I was reading the intro, I saw you getting shaky and all nervous and stuff. Are you nervous?
A little bit.
Why? We're friends.
Well, so everything that you just read, I've been doing that job for roughly 7 days now. So it just
you got it mastered.
Hearing it all.
You got it down.
I got it.
Don't be nervous because there's well, I could lie to you and say people don't listen, but I got a pretty decent following. So,
people are listening.
So last week at AFSEN, I know we were TDY to the same location last week in Dallas, and we were catching up, here and there. But I did a live interview with Chief Wright, and he was asking me well, how many numbers, how many people, listen to this? And I told him, he was like, oh shit, he's like, holy cow.
I don't think I want you to tell me the number.
No. Most people don't believe it, so I don't even bother telling anyone. They think I'm making it up.
Well, now I want to know.
Depends. So the podcast I did so I had Chief Wright in my podcast. He was episode number 5.
Wow.
And it had 90,000 downloads.
Wow.
Right? And now there's always people well, that means you probably listened to it 90,000 times. Or just, it's not how it works. You play it one time. It's, people are just haters. And then we did the live video last week, just impromptu. There was no coordination. We just happened to cross paths out in the main lobby, and we caught up. And we did that Facebook Live, and it has, I think, 6,000. And this was last Wednesday, so it's pretty cool.
Chief, you're Facebook famous.
No. But the reason I bring that just because it just shows the impact that one person can have on so many. You being one of that, and I'm gonna read what I wrote about you.
Okay.
Because I have a nice compliment, and I didn't try to memorize it because I don't want to miss anything. And I thought about writing this in the card. I was actually gonna give you a card, but I thought this would be more. This is my love letter to you.
Aww.
You are an amazing and high energy person who has positively impacted so many, right? So, but the reason I say that is, I've had a lot of deep conversations. But before we get into a deep question, explain to me why life is great right now.
Oh my goodness, why life is great right now. I'm a very literal person, so when you say right now, I'm in the present.
Yeah.
So 1, because I'm here with you.
Yeah.
2, I got to teach my last lesson for the Staff Sergeant Professional Enhancement Seminar at the Wright-Patterson Professional Development Center, and I got to teach Accelerate, Change, or Lose and the action orders. And it was an incredibly small class, and I get fired up when I teach.
How many classes have you taught over the past year?
That's a trick question. I have no idea.
But just at least 100, I'd say.
I had a minimum in the last. Well, we do 1 class a week, roughly at the Professional Development Center, and I teach between 2 to 5 lessons per class.
Yeah.
Whatever that maths out to, probably a lot.
So how long have you been in this job now?
2 years, almost.
Right. Yes, exactly. 2 years. And I remember meeting you before you took the job, so it's crazy that it's been 2 years, right? Just like that. But now that as you reflect back, what's something new that you learned from this job that you did not expect? Because I think with a lot of these positions, we know I'm going to be better at this or learn how to do X, but I think there's probably some things new challenges that came up, and you're like, you know what, that's a good lesson learned I wasn't expecting.
That's a great question. That's a tough question. I am often known for my energy and my outward presence, if you will. But one of the things that people don't believe me is that I'm shy.
Yeah.
And I am. It terrifies me to cold call a stranger or walk up to a chief and say, hey, we need your support at the PDC.
Yeah.
So the first couple months I was there, I had an irrational fear of sending mass emails and calling strangers. That is gone. I have learned to overcome that specific fear, because what is the worst somebody's going to tell you? No, I don't want to help the enlisted force development of the 41,000 customers we have at Wright-Pat. If they say no, I don't want them anyway.
Yeah.
So that is how one of the things that I've grown through in the last 2 years.
Real quick, hey man, you want to sit down in that? You can move my bag, dude. Sit down.
Okay.
Yeah. Or grab that
chair
chair.
too.
Grab that chair.
That one's squeaky.
No, grab it, dude. I mean, it's not live. So we're just sitting on the ground. I'm
Yeah.
like, don't tell people I made you sit
You're
here.
gonna be really uncomfortable. I might talk forever.
He's one of the flight chiefs for GSI.
I know,
Yeah.
he's my favorite. Flight chief in GSI for
Yeah.
his flight.
Hey, so you mentioned that you're shy.
I am.
Yeah, and nervous. Where does all that stem from?
Being human, I guess. So, as you highlighted in my bio, I've been an all source intelligence analyst. I did that gig for 19 years. And as my other intel bubbas would call me, especially the not one and zeros, they would call me just a briefer, right? So, I
am one of such people. So.
just a PowerPoint ranger. But I had to condition myself to stand in front of a group and get people to listen. But at the end of the day, you look out and you see the judging eyes on the intel side. You might see some folks that want to one-up you or know-it-all you. And then on the I was a tech school instructor for 4 years. On that side, you see the eyes that you want to see the light bulb, but you don't necessarily see it, and that kind of gets you. And then here at Wright-Patterson, I think part of me being shy is wanting to reach everybody and knowing I can't. So it makes me sad, which might sound silly, but I do work through it, and I say, okay, if there's 10 people in the room and I only get one, at least I got one.
Yeah.
So that's what helps me push through the shyness.
Hey, I want to read this quote again because I have and actually my backpack over there, I have a black notebook, and it's full of quotes and just various writings and thoughts I've had. I've had it for almost 10 years. And every time I read a book, I always take notes from that book and write it in that journal. And before each podcast, I go back and I review all the different quotes that I have. And I saw this one. I want to say it again.
Okay.
We don't grow despite the storms. We grow because of the storms. What does that make you think of? And what do you think about that quote?
Oh, it makes me think of my life in the Air Force, because every day has the potential to bring a storm. And it's not the storm that defines you. It's how you respond to the storm. We talk a lot about failure in the Air Force and people being afraid of failure,
Yeah.
or talk about how it's failing forward. I love failure.
Yeah.
I love the storm. I am who I am because of those things.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on what's a big storm? And you've shared some stuff with me in the past, but what's like a personal story or a trial and tribulation storm that you've had?
Well, I mean, like you said, we've talked in the past. You know my big one. On October 27th, 2010, Staff Sergeant then Jacobs got a DUI. And I don't like to talk a lot about the DUI specifically,
Yeah.
because I like to talk about the after.
Were you married before?
I was.
I didn't know that.
I was. That was, everybody gets their trainer marriage. No? Is that? Some people stick with it longer than I did.
All right, so DUI, and what rank were you at this point?
I was a staff sergeant.
So you came in in June. So at this point you've been in for over 8 years because you
Correct.
came in June of 2010, right? Or excuse me,
2010,
June of 2002. This happened October 2010. This happened October 2010. So MCO.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about what happened after.
So, I mean, there's two failures that I do like to highlight with that particular incident. And the first one is I was experiencing a terrible divorce, right? And I did not cope well. So I attribute one of the main failures to me not taking advantage of help, because it's out there. Even back in the olden times of 2010, help was out there. And I actively chose to self-medicate and made a poor life choice. But I was good at my job. That's I think that's what saved my life. I was good at my job, and after I got in trouble, this is when we all have our moments when we joined the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
That the next day when I was getting read my letter of reprimand, which, surprise, surprise, all I got was a letter of reprimand.
Thankfully, especially
Right?
in 2010.
Yeah.
Because that was a very harsh time.
That was a
with
zero
PT
tolerance.
and DUIs.
Yep.
And, yeah.
So I got a LOR, UIF, control roster, referral EPR, command directed to ADAPT, and I lost an assignment. because I was projected to PCS to Cannon Air Force Base. As I ended up Cannon anyway, and I'm thankful for that. But as I was getting read my letter of reprimand, I felt a family that I didn't know existed, even after 8 years of service, even after deployments and losing friends. I was at a joint assignment, and I had an Air Force Master Sergeant.
Where were you at this time?
Transcom at Scott Air Force Base.
Okay, that's Illinois, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I had an Air Force Master Sergeant, a Navy Chief, a Navy Captain, and an Air Force 06.
Okay.
All go to bat for me. They rallied. They talked to the Air Force Element Commander, a one-star general, who I don't know her name. I know she was a she, but that's all I remember. Never met her. She didn't know me from this table.
Yeah.
And my leadership convinced her. She said, "Why does she need to stay in my Air Force?" And they said, "Absolutely, she does." And that was the moment I became essentially the crazy, idealistic, optimistic Senior Z you see today, because I genuinely believe that group of people saved my life.
What's one specific action they did? Because a lot of times, especially in our positions, right, or even as friends or someone who's in a leadership position, hey, I want to help this person, or we always hear, hey, let me know if you need anything, or what can I do to help? But it's always kind of a general and generic
Absolutely.
thing. But what's something, a specific comment or a specific action that someone did or said, and like it just hit?
Well, two come to mind, so I'm going to go with both of them. The first was a comment. My Army Lieutenant Colonel supervisor went to my ADAPT INDOC with me, because that's how that works. And in it, he broke down in tears and apologized. He said, Z, I knew there was, well, he didn't say Z because I was Jacobs. He said, Sergeant Jacobs, I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't say anything because I didn't want to get you in trouble. And that comment made me realize that it doesn't matter how hard the conversation is, you need to have it.
Mm.
And I don't blame him for not having it by any stretch of the imagination, but it sparked something in me that when I see something off, I'm going to ask.
Yeah.
And the next one was Master Sergeant Christopher Higgs, now retired Chief Chris Higgs. Who I still talk to this day, one of my mentors. He drove me to rehab every day because I had to go to command-directed rehab out in town with real people.
Did you lose your
I lost
license?
my license. Yeah. So he drove me to that every day, and then he, until I figured out my life and got some different arrangements, he drove me to work every day. And it was in those trips that he would talk to me about how I was convinced my life was over.
Yeah.
I was convinced that I had already tested for tech 3 times. I was a A-type overachiever, and he's the one that made me really realize that, again, it's not the storm, it's how you come out of it.
So that's great. I love that. That's really good. Following up on that, how do you gain energy back after something so monumental? Because to me, I can't imagine you specifically without energy.
I lost it for a while, and I think that's okay. I think every time a bad thing happens, you're allowed a mourning period. It's about not getting stuck in it. And the first, I was the only enlisted briefer they let brief the 4-star. I was demonstrating in a joint environment what an Air Force staff sergeant could do. And I felt like I destroyed that, and I destroyed that opportunity for the future enlisted troops that were going to come through that section. Sorry. As I was reflecting on the fact that I failed everyone, to include myself, I said, wait a second. I got an opportunity for a reason. Now I can help other people. These folks put their backs out for me to save my career. I owe it to them, and I owe it to myself to come back, and to come back stronger. I wrote a compelling letter to be submitted with my referral EPR, explaining my failures, me understanding my failures, and how I was going to overcome those failures. About week later, there was another NCO serving on our watch that someone came and asked me if I would talk to them because they were smelling like alcohol on a pretty regular basis, but nobody wanted to talk to him. And that was I brand new in ADAPT, but that was the first time I talked to somebody and tried to convince them to go on their own, to self-refer, to do it before something happened.
What month was this?
Oh gosh, probably, if I got it in October, maybe December, January.
So we're still super fresh.
Yes.
Right? So like, less than 3 months,
Yes.
actually 2 months from October, right?
And I was put like in a corner. I wasn't allowed to do anything anymore.
But
at
you
work.
still were like, hey, I'm
I'm
gonna
here.
take these lessons learned and try to help this person, or still like, I'm going through a rough period, but I still want to pour into someone else's cup in a way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It reinvigorated me. It made me realize that I could help others not make the same mistakes I do. And I live that to this day. I mean, shoot, in the Staff Sergeant Pez I just taught, I explained to them all about the failures I had done at AFSAPEDS, like in some leadership capacities, things that I learned from, to just remind them that, hey, a 21-year senior master sergeant still has things to learn, still has mistakes to make and to
100%.
overcome.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's stayed with me since that moment.
So in the past 13 years, how much have you leveraged that time, the knowledge from that time, from the DUI to just build and develop and influence others?
It started off slowly because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed. So I would say my time at Cannon and a lot of my time at Goodfellow, I didn't talk about it. I just worked hard.
Yeah.
I said I have to regain my credibility as a professional, as an intelligence analyst, as a person. So I was embarrassed and I did not use it. But then at NASIC, I was open about some of the challenges I had before getting my DA, CAA, ADA, whatever it is.
It always changes. I keep
DAs. Before getting that position, I saw a challenge in the organization where there were some people that were struggling. And being intelligence professionals, we have a stigma that you can't go to mental health and be okay. So our command chief at the time, Chief Master Sergeant Kimberly Pollard, she used to do these weekly letters to the force, and you could submit one. Not to go too tangenty, I had while I was at NASIC, I went back to mental health because I was having a real hard time there, and I needed help, and I learned from my last time, hey, when you need help, you should get it. So I wrote a letter to the force identifying all of my mistakes that stigma says will hurt your career, and highlighted, hey, I still have my clearance, hey, I still have my job, hey, I still made
And this is in 2020,
senior. This was in 19.
2019.
Well, the letter probably went out in early 20.
Okay.
Early 20. Around the COVID times.
Yeah. But almost, 10 years after the fact, right? It's like, hey, I still want to share this message and apply lessons learned.
In my current position, I talk about it to almost every FTAC class because they have a mandatory ADAPT briefing.
Yeah.
So I come in and talk about how great ADAPT is, and how going to it before you're told to go to it is the best option if you need it, and share to the younger generation that perfection, it's not a thing, and that you shouldn't live in your storm all by yourself, because there's somebody else that can relate. And almost every class I talk to, and it depends on the day and what I feel like talking about, but I'll talk about trials and tribulations throughout my career. Almost every time I get one or two that want to talk after because they've got something going on.
No, that's awesome, right? And that's what it's about, and that's why I always talk about this podcast. It's about taking lessons learned from past experiences to help shape and influence those around us. All right, so I mean now we're at almost 13 years from that time. Looking back again, is there something was there like a coping method that you used, or something unexpected? Like, was there a helpful was there like an unexpected helpful resource that you're like, oh man, like, and maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but now you look back, oh man, that was unexpected, and I see the value in it now. Or maybe something as you were growing up that someone taught you, kind of, I call it like the Slumdog Millionaire, right? Like, remember, you've seen the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he's getting asked questions and it's all of a sudden he's having flashbacks to something when someone said something, and it's the key to unlock the new routes.
Yes, but it's weird. So my grandfather, my dad's dad, he passed away in '91. I have very few memories. I was little. I remember like some highlights and. Mm-hmm. And he was in the Air Force for 22 years. I didn't really know that when I joined the Air Force. I joined the Air Force because my brother was in the Army and he said, "Hey, go join the Air Force." Like Chief Bass says, our biggest recruiters are our sister services. I distinctly remember my grandfather telling me to always be a hard worker. You will always gain respect and trust if you're a hard worker. And I don't know why that stuck with me, but it is something when I get stuck or I feel like, I just need a break or whatever it is, I say I can always fall back on being a hard worker.
Yeah.
And taking care of my Air Force family. It's a little random, but...
Even if someone doesn't like hard workers are always respected. So even if someone has a personal grudge, it's like, you know what, I can't stand that person, but they're a hard worker.
If my work is above reproach, then I can't... I keep going. Like, it's... I don't know, and it goes back to when my family at Transcom saved my life.
Yeah.
I owe it, I still feel like to this day, I owe it to them to do everything I can for everyone in my scope of responsibility.
You keep bringing, you brought up the Transcom family again, and one of the follow-up questions I was going to ask you is, how can we make people feel significant in the moment, especially in the crowded world? But I think you've answered that, so we don't need to. That's pretty good. But it's interesting. You talked about the quote from your grandfather, right? Just something really random that he probably said once or twice, or maybe a couple times. Who knows? But it's just one of those things that just embedded and resonated in your mind. But we're here, August 2023. It's very hot in this room.
It is.
Yeah. So it's not tears on our face. It's actual sweat. This is a very general question.
Okay.
And I purposely leave it like that because I don't want to frame the answer. But what are you running from, and what are you running towards?
Do I have to answer in that order?
Answer however you want.
I'm running towards...
Answer it in a Z formation.
The Z formation. A Z formation. I'm extreme orange on the four lenses. You can just see what the Z formation looks like. It's going to look like scribbles.
Do you remember Living Color? Like that was a skit.
In the olden times?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I'm running towards hope and excitement. Like I said, I'm in a new position as a special duty manager for development advisors. And this, coming from me, it's going to sound weird. I am so excited to be a part of shaping policy that can positively affect our enlisted development.
Yeah.
I got told today I was going to have an opportunity to make some changes to the Air Force Enlisted Classification Directory specifically associated with my AFSC. And I was like, can I start now? Do I do it? How do I do it? Like, can somebody tell me an answer? Because I'm just going to do it. I'm so excited to be a part of shaping the next phase of our force. Policy is not going to be my favorite thing to do. I know that. I like to motivate and inspire groups of people and teach and all these things. And now I'm going to be sitting in front of a computer reading a detail-oriented mission and trying to make changes for the future. So it's going to be hard. What I'm running from, I don't know that I'm necessarily running from anything. I'm very present oriented. Like I need to live in my now. Look for the future because obviously I want to take care of myself, but I'm happy where I am. I really am. Like, I look back at my past and I have some, regrets, but mostly I'm proud and happy of everything I've done up to this point, because it's made me who I am, and I like me today.
Speaking of that, so what's your advice to someone who's maybe hardwired the same way? What's your advice to turning personal tragedy into triumph?
Hold on, I gotta think about this one. What's my advice on turning personal tragedy into triumph? Give yourself grace and don't give up on yourself. You control your future. Circumstances be what they may. Luck and timing is what it is.
Yeah.
But if you don't give up on you, if you don't believe in you, nobody else is going to. You know?
That's a potential name for this episode. That's good. I like that a lot. Last serious question, then we're going to jump into some fun questions.
I like fun questions.
They are, but I got there's things I wanted to explore just a little bit with you.
I'm good.
And I know you're someone who has a positive, like I said earlier, you have a positive impact on so many, so that's why I just wanted to get these, we'll call them Z gems.
Z gems, okay.
Z gems.
Z gems.
How has your toolkit for enacting change evolved over the years?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because you're involved in a lot of different things.
I am.
Thank you for that, because I really put some thought into this question. You're into, you got a lot of different pots going on, and,
I do.
And all of them like have something good brewing. But
I like that. Okay, say the question one more time. Say it
how
one more
has
time.
your toolkit for enacting change evolved over the years?
You
know what?
Am I allowed to tell a story?
I'm going to do a cheap follow-up impression real quick. Because I think she'll listen to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to ask you to share. And before she even hears this part, as soon as she heard me ask that question the first time, she's probably, ooh, that's a good question. I could see that. And then now she's probably rolling her eyes like, Martin. Anyway, go ahead.
So I'm going to have to share a story, if that's okay.
Do it.
Am I allowed to tell stories here? That's how I teach. It always seems like I'm going in circles, and then I bring it back to the objective like a champion. But we're going to talk about Tech Sergeant Zengerle. She was the course chief for the 1-0 course at Goodfellow Air Force Base. Then she was the flight chief for Lone Star, and then she was the flight chief for the 14N course. And in that capacity, I got the opportunity to be a part of a team reformatting how technical training was done at Goodfellow, specifically starting with the 14N course. And I have always been incredibly passionate. And it is after that assignment that I did some self-reflecting, and I realized passionate, and that's just how she is not a compliment. It is identifying that maybe she should be quiet and listen, because Tech Sergeant Z was a little bit of a hothead, and when I believed something was right, I fought tooth and nail, which I do to this day. But how you fight is what makes an effective fight, right? Like, I would just try to fight my way to the table, make sure my voice was heard, and I didn't really realize that the tone I was delivering what I believed was right in was not being heard because of how I was saying it. I was able to affect change, and we did some amazing things at Wright-Patterson, to the point where my outgoing wing commander and my gaining wing commander made essentially a deal to allow me to stay at Goodfellow for 6 extra months to finish the project that I was working on. But I burned bridges. I made people angry. I distinctly remember I was in a meeting, and the commander was at the head of the table. Then there was a civilian, and then there was me, and across was my counterpart, who kept me in check a lot. I call him Master Lieutenant Gibson, but now he's a captain. He was a Master Sergeant at the time. I was having one of my Z tantrums, and the civilian put his hand up and stuck it in my face, looked at the commander and said, "Can we have a meeting with adults, please?" And I saw red, right? I turned, like, you know, when you're so mad, your face turns purple. And I was like, oh my God, this man just put his hand in my face. And I looked across at my best friend, Gibby, and he was shaking his head no. And I was like, he's trying to tell me something. What is he trying to tell me? So then I just put my head down and I looked over at him with the, hey, you need to talk now eyes. And he kind of finished things up for us. And one of the things that I would tell anybody is self-reflection and positive self-talk is one of the most important things to me. That's how I get through anything and how I learn lessons the hard way almost every time. But I did some self-reflection and I realized, like, it would have been much more effective to get what we needed done faster if I would have won that nice man over instead of fought tooth and nail. If I would have just taken a second to have a conversation with him instead of us consistently bashing each other. So I took that with me to NASIC, where it was a culture shock for me when the first time I've ever worked with thousands of civilians as opposed to thousands
Literally
of uniformed.
1,000 civilians plus. That's,
everywhere.
That's actually that's a low estimate.
Yes, I think there's probably 4,000 at least. And I took that with me, and now when I try to affect change, I listen first. I'm not perfect. I mess up all the time. Probably every single day I mess up. I bank on whoever I'm working with hopefully realizing that I mean well and I have passion, and that I'm never going to try to steer us in a direction that is negative or will hurt the team. But that's the first component of that, and then the second is if you're trying to affect change, look at what already exists. Often we don't read the things we say we know, right? Like the little black, brown book, blue book, purple book.
AFI.
Any AFI, or Accelerate, Change, or Lose, the action orders. If you read the things that govern what makes us the profession of arms, and you have a change that may affect the bureaucracy of your organization, take some content from what's out there and try to communicate it the way that Air Force will listen, if that makes any sense. I hope that makes sense.
It does, and I've learned that as well because people just don't know how to articulate. And a lot of people think they're great communicators and they think they're saying the right things, but their tone, their delivery, the timing, how you deliver the message can be completely opposite of how that how it sounds and how it's received.
Yep.
So,
and I can come off abrasive and direct
yeah.
at times, and sometimes I forget to take the time to build the relationship before just trying to execute. So one of the things I worked hard for as the development advisor is to build relationships at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And now I can't go anywhere without seeing someone I know,
True.
Which makes me feel like I've done okay. I'm sure there's some people out there that are not Team Z, but we've gotten a lot that are trying to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
I'm not Team Z, I'm joking. But a good friend of mine, and I think yours as well, Carla McCool.
Absolutely.
So something I learned from her a couple of years ago was the art of, because we always talk about time management.
Mm-hmm.
She has this whole thing about energy management,
Oh,
and she broke it down for me one day in my office, and I was like, man, it's like it's etched into my brain. But people don't know how to manage their energy, especially the more responsibility they move up in rank, and they think they're masters of all these different things. It's like, no, you suck at energy management, and that's why you're struggling.
Absolutely.
So fix it. All right, I want to move to some lighter things. Rapid fire questions.
Okay.
They're miscellaneous.
Okay.
There's no order or rhyme or reason. It's just.
This is my favorite.
Yeah. I have some stuff on here, but of course I may change. All right, you ready?
Yes.
If you would have a dinner party with 5 guests, past or present, who would you invite, and what would the dinner party theme be?
Oh, okay. So I would invite. Do I count in the 5?
5 additional guests.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would invite
Dinner for 6.
all of my grandparents. That's
We're gonna count them as We'll count them as 1.
okay. Because Grandpa and Grandpa were both in the Air Force.
We'll count them as 1.
I would love to talk to them about my time in the military. But so my grandparents is 1, my parents is 2.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with. Oh, this is hard. Wait for it. I'm not good at rapid fire. Hold on. I don't want to leave anybody out.
Hey. Okay, so excluding family.
Okay,
Can't
no
be
family. No family. Got it. Okay. If I were gonna have a dinner party, I would invite. You're gonna edit this part out where I get stuck, right?
Potentially.
Because I am stuck. I guess I'll go with in throwback to one of the previous answers where I'm excited and energized and hopeful to help change the future. I would invite the current SimSAF, whoever the next SimSAF is going to be. I would invite. I would invite Chief Walker, Justin Walker. He's
Okay.
the Security Forces chief here. I would invite.
I need one non-military person. And think of a historical person.
Oh, anybody in the past?
Or celebrity.
I feel like we need to come back to this
Okay.
question.
All
I
right,
don't talk to anybody outside the military, and my life revolves around this.
Okay.
I ruined rapid fire.
Alright, you're great at many things.
Nope.
But what are you world class at that people might not know?
Oh, I'm a great bowler.
Okay. What's your score?
Like my highest ever?
Mhm.
300.
Oh, wow.
I have
Perfect.
multiple of those.
Oh, wow.
My average is a 207. I'm a super big bowling nerd.
I had no idea.
I love it.
I had no idea.
So at my going away on Saturday, I invited all my bowling friends. So you're gonna see a bunch of strangers that are not military, oddly enough. And I bowl here on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Kitty Hawk Lanes.
Okay. Alright. If there was a military movie made about your life, who would play you, and what would the name of that movie be?
I'm gonna go with what's her name? She's
You sound like my wife.
Oh.
What's that actress' name?
no,
She was in that movie.
she was Blossom in the olden times, and now
Mayan Ballad?
yeah. People say I look like her. I don't know if that's good or bad.
I don't see it.
I think it's the nose. But it would be her, and it would be. The Storms.
The Storms?
The Storms. Because I'm stuck on the quote that you talked about at the beginning of this whole
Oh,
podcast.
The Storms. Got
The
you.
Storms,
Okay.
yeah.
So I was thinking like an actress.
I
was
mean,
like,
we've talked about
The
one,
Storms.
but let's be honest, in a 21-year career, I've seen some storms.
That's good.
I've seen
I like
some
that.
storms.
I like that. Which historical figure do you identify with?
Can I go with like a mythical god?
Yeah.
Freya. She is the god of war and love.
Okay.
Because I'm a fighter and I believe in warheads on foreheads,
No,
but I
that's
also
good.
believe in family and love.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't expect that. That's a good one.
It's random.
If you could put last question, if you could put a billboard anywhere in the world with your message on it for everyone to see and read, where would that billboard be, and what would your message say?
The billboard would be. You know, I've never been to like big cities, which sounds weird because been in the Air Force forever, but the Air Force put me at Cannon,
Yeah.
Goodfellow, and Dayton. So I'm thinking probably a billboard in New York, right? Like that lots of people see and maybe gets on TV or accidentally in a movie or something.
So Times Square.
Yeah, and the message would be to be kind. And then I want to add a second one.
Okay.
Where a mass amount of military people would see the billboard. And I wanted to say something like, maybe just a little bit of your why can be the defense of our nation.
We're going to end on that. Hey, Z.
Yeah?
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You mean
This
a lot.
was super hard.
No, that's good. Hey, we're going to go back. Let's close out. Actually, we're going to go back to the dinner party.
Oh, shit. Okay. No
All right,
military.
which characters
Which characters?
from the game Clue would you have at your dinner party? You can choose 3.
Oh, okay. Definitely Miss Scarlet,
Okay.
because I like red. Probably Mrs. White, because she's sneaky. And then Colonel Mustard, because we should probably have a guy.
That's a wrap. Hey, Z, thanks again so much. I appreciate you. And thanks for being a guest on my podcast and sharing your story.
Thanks for having me. It was terrifying and exciting all at the same time.
Did you like the questions?
No. I loved them.
All right, we're good.